PD, which is the 911 911 contract with the county. Um, Contract now goes up 2% annually. It's now $1,020,000 for 2024. Going to page.
Chair, can I just ask before we move on to, when is that contract expiring? Do you know that?
This is the last year where it has the rate increases, and I believe it's up. They go up 2% a year. Ending renegotiation, please don't.
And that's end of year as in December 31st, 23,
24.
24. Remember, Mandy, did you have a question?
Basically,
That was the question.
that was what,
Okay.
is, in terms of that 911 contract, is, do any other municipalities in the county pay, or does it come out of their county tax?
That I don't know.
Is the county legally obligated to provide 911 services as part of their governmental duties? So like, if we just stop paying them, would they still have to?
A lot of the other agencies have their own dispatching.
Mhm.
So in the fallback is 911. So like East Greenbush has their own dispatchers. North Greenbush has their own dispatcher, Cedar Falls does, and then in the overnights, 911 takes over. So like if you call 911 in one of those jurisdictions, it gets routed to that dispatcher that's working for that police department. So I think that's part of it. We don't have any of that when it was given away back in the mid-90s. It's been in their hands ever since.
Right.
I mean, they do some records management, stuff like that too, their CAD. So it's something that was created, 30 years ago almost.
I'm looking at this size of the expense, and I mean, obviously Troy probably generates the highest volume of calls.
Oh, by far.
Yeah. But, as you're going into a new year and starting to open the doors, negotiation, county, what leverage do we have?
Well, my understanding too is this is for fire too. So this is for both departments.
Correct.
So I don't know. Yeah, it'd be great. I mean, if we could have our own dispatchers again, I would love it.
Yeah.
But I think it's never gonna happen. We would have a lot more control though. It would be better.
And how many people do you think, and this will probably be a question that I'll ask the chief, fire chief as well. How many people are needed to staff a dispatch for 911? It's obviously 24/7, and there's the IT and the data records, but you can do a lot of money. You can do a lot with $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to get all the infrastructure again, which is all gone. So that would be a huge startup cost. And then, I mean, normally when we used to have our own, we always had like 2 police, 1 fire, 24/7 pretty much. Sometimes in the overnight you'd have 1-on-1, and then you have to account for days off. And so it's a fair amount of personnel.
Yeah.
With benefits and
Yep.
stuff. So.
Yeah, it's always the.
But I get it. I know where you're coming from. I mean, you have to really do a study and see if it would be cost effective, and not just the cost, but what you're getting for your money. You know what I mean? Because right now we have very little control over what happens down at it's called PDS, Bureau of Emergency Services. And we have a great relationship and all that, but I mean, we don't really have any control, or very little control over how things are done now.
Yeah, and it's probably the biggest funder of it, and then also, having the biggest impact on it. It would make sense for us to have a really good open line of communication with the county government to get something that's tailored to our needs, and then also the county as a whole.
Sure.
And especially, you know, mutual aid between cities and the sheriff's department. So, you know, I don't know to what degree your department, fire department is part of that negotiating team as they're going into preparing for that next year.
I'd like to be a part of it,
Yeah,
if I'm allowed.
well, I think it's a very logical thing,
Yeah, I would think, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
the logic in government.
yeah. Who said it?
Councilmember Kelly.
Do you get many problems with the 911 system the way it is? I mean, you feel like we get the proper coverage with it? Are there any hangups or anything you say, I'd like to see them do this a little better or a little differently?
It's, no, I mean, it runs the way it's supposed to run. You know, officers are dispatched to where it's supposed to be dispatched and so on, but it's just when you had your own dispatch service, those people were more familiar with the city, they're more familiar with, you know, where a certain property was a problem, and while they have that on a screen, they don't necessarily know where that really is sometimes, you know, because they're not familiar with the city the way somebody who's just working the city all the time.
Do you think that causes any delay in getting that message when they're trying to find out where they're?
No, because it's computer aided, so I mean, they know the cross streets and all that, so that doesn't play, but not that I've seen it, you guys.
All right, great, thank you, Chief.
Cool.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on. And
Going to page 90. The police department budget. Salary changes for permanent salaries are all contractual step increases for the 2024 fiscal year, with the exception of two items, which if you go to page 93, there's an increase in the salary for the confidential secretary to the police chief. That position is currently vacant. It's being proposed to have a salary next year of $60,000. The prior salary was $49,168. And the vacant demo position has a deferred hiring date of April 1st, 2024. All other, as I mentioned previously, all other salary changes are contractual step increases. Back to page 90, unless there's questions on 101.
Chair,
Council President.
Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. Andy, you and I had, just for the public, we had talked about the step, after step 5. Can you talk about that in more depth? Thank you.
So when the police department has 6 steps to get the top step police officer pay. Police officer 1 is from 0 to 6 months. Police officer 2 is 7 to 18. Police officer 3 is 19 to 30. 4 is 31 to 42. 5 is 43 to 54, and 6 is at 54 months and thereafter. These steps have been there for, I think they haven't changed. I don't believe they've changed in the 10 years I've been here. When we do the personnel sheets, we're trying to capture all the step changes that are going to occur in the subsequent fiscal year, because as you just heard, they're not 12-month phase, they're all generally 6 months. So it's reflective of those changes that are going to occur. The code contract is currently being negotiated. That expired on December 31st, 2022. And the PBA contract expires on December 31st, 2023, of which they are opening negotiations this week. So there's no contractual percentage increases for either. But there are the contractual step increases that have been there for years.
Okay, and, Andy and hi chiefs, how are you? Once again, I'm so sorry I'm late. How many vacancies are we anticipating, for 2024, you think, chief? And what would the cost impact be for this?
We currently have around 7 vacancies. And we're looking at, I'd say, another six or so in 2024.
Seven with another six.
Yeah,
Okay, that's very good. And how many of those do you figure are retirement? Chief, God bless you.
yeah, pretty much all of them.
They're all.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple out of that 7, there were 2 people that lateraled somewhere else. The other 5 were retirements. And then moving forward, you know, there's 2 sergeants retiring in January or February. There's an officer retiring in February. There's a captain retiring in June. And sprinkled in there will be some more in that 12-month period, but at least that. I mean, I may even be conservative saying 7. Because there's a group of people that are all ready to retire. So they're not in one. But we do have the new list. We currently have the old list, which we're gonna try and get a few people off of so that we can have somebody in the January class. And then the new list will probably be certified sometime in December. So, you know, we should be in decent shape for hiring.
And, you know, on that, I was kind of looking at things earlier this morning. And it looks like, 6 officers hit their 20 years. Looks like maybe starting in 2024
Correct.
until 2030. Has there been any cost analysis on the potential vacancies or?
As far as you mean the savings because they're not hired, I haven't. I mean, usually what happens is the overtime increases because of the lack of manpower, so it somewhat offsets some of that. Of course, I mean, not paying for benefits and a pension, but it does raise the overtime.
Yeah.
They're still paying some.
Yeah.
Some.
Okay, and, you know, I know we talked about the other night, just hiring and retention, and, you know, I know, obviously, you know, we're trying to compete, with other agencies, other communities. I think you said, and I was looking for my notes, if you saw me going through them, 10K.
That's
we're
correct.
Under about 10K compared to other municipalities. Has anything been done in the 2024 budget to try to address that?
I'm smirking for, there have been considerations given and within the entire document itself. As I mentioned, we're opening negotiations with PBA this week. So it's not in the permanent salary line, but there have been considerations given within the budget. I think if I go much further, the corporation council is not going to be very happy with me, because of it, because we're entering into negotiations.
Councilmember Gully? Did you have a question?
I forgot if
Okay, understood.
I may need to vote.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Chief, can you walk me through the, confidential secretary, how that has been increased?
Sure. So currently, like you said, it was between 48 and 49. That my confidential secretary left because of the pay. And the other administrative assistants, the junior administrative assistant line is much higher in salary than that position. But it's a very important position that has a lot of responsibility, and it's difficult to try and find somebody at the current salary. That's why I asked.
I think I noticed the junior administrative assistant making a lot more. So.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sawyer.
So I'm seeing, one of the junior administrative assistant salary jumped up to 10 grand.
Is that contractual?
Yeah, if there's any increase there, it's by statute, so it's civil service or their contract.
So is that, Andy, is that something based on their years of service? It's stepping, okay, all right. That's all. Thank you.
Go back to 91.
Nine.
Or
Page 90.
90, okay.
The bump in temporary salaries is based off of hourly rate increases for a variety of the different part-time employees that work within the police department, which includes matrons, crossing guards, to employees that work in the police department garage. That's the basis for the increase from $230,000 to $258,000. Going down through the other accounts, the fluctuations of clothing allowance, that was based off of, and we discussed this at the finance committee meeting last week, that we have seen a transition of officers moving away from payment from uniform vouchers for a vendor and moving more towards having it paid through payroll, which is the reason for that increase. Then the other items going down from there are all contractual. 202, $375,000 as for the purchase of both marked and unmarked vehicles we talked about last week. These are funded in the capital plan. It's consistent with what we have done, I believe, the last 3 years. And will prove to be fruitful after 2024 because there will no longer be any debt outstanding for police vehicles. So as I mentioned tonight, that's how long it takes to cycle out of issuing, unless if you have a massive budget appropriation, pay the debt off, continue to pay it off in increments. It took 3 years to get out of the debt cycle for police vehicles.
Sure.
Council President?
Andy, while we're on traffic, do you mind when you're done to hit the revenue? We might as well hit that.
Yes, so we can do that now. That's on page.
Eight.
On page 9, 2/3 of the way down, a 3000-2610-422, a budget amount next year of $450,000. It's a decrease of $150,000 from the 2023 budget, but an increase of $110,000 from 2022. The $450,000 was determined based off of taking the current year monthly receipts that we have, averaging it, dividing it by, at that time, would have been 8 or 7, because we had 7 months at that time, getting the average monthly receipts this year, and multiplying it by 12. Came out to be $450.
And Andy, that is all from traffic, correct?
It is
No other
It's the-
factor.
Paid traffic tickets written. It's the paid tickets written by traffic, not the amount written. We recognize the revenue as it's paid, not as it is written.
Right, okay. And that does not include any other items, that's all traffic.
Correct,
Correct.
it's just traffic.
Okay. Chair. Oops, sorry, and, chief, how many are normally, patrolling? Which is saying, with traffic enforcement?
2 to 3 a day.
Okay.
Probably out there, and they do commercial vehicle traffic enforcement too, which is that's the moneymaker really.
Oh, yeah.
The big rates and stuff. So it's not for a lack of writing the tickets. The ticket numbers are pretty steady. The collections there's not as much of a consequence for not paying as there used to be. So this is more a realistic number of what's actually coming in.
And yes, follow up a few questions. First, I do want to say, I have noticed on a super positive note, traffic is out there much, much more. Hoosick Street, Lincoln Ave, many areas that I know council is swarming you with. I also noticed the truck stops, which Terry Buchanan used to oversee on Hoosick, and he'd have folks pulled over left and right. But I noticed it on the backside of her park a lot, because trucks are trying to head up there and avoid Hoosick. So I have noticed that. I noticed,
Yeah, we use that as, we stage them there when we do
yeah,
the enforcement, because it's perfect, you got that half moon
yeah.
right there near the golf course.
Gotcha. So you pull them over on Hoosick Street, but then tell them to go over there. That's what I was hearing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's in,
Yeah,
that's in cooperation with New York State too, usually somebody from the DMV is there with us.
right. Yeah, yeah.
The partner.
Quick question, follow-up, enforcement, what are the consequences right now per state law? They have come down, I take it?
Well, like if you didn't pay your fines in the past, your vehicle, your license would be suspended and then you'd be subject to arrest, and then it doesn't really happen anymore the way the current system is. The changes that have been made, because they don't want to arrest people for not paying traffic fines anymore, so. So that, I mean, some people are paying their fines, and
Right.
450,000 were paying.
Oh,
fines,
yeah, sure.
but some people don't, so.
Is there any latitude for us to implement anything that would, beef up the, consequences or no? I mean, we
I don't-
have it at the max where
Yeah,
it's
it's-
stated.
Exactly. So it's like we can write more, we can do more, but and maybe in the long run, you would get more revenue, for the people that do pay it, but once we write the ticket and then that's that pretty
Yeah.
much. And then as long as we're there, to help with the prosecution of the ticket and so on. But as far as the collections of it, it's all, in the court side.
And we get a percentage, correct? The state gets a certain.
They get the court fees. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I think if we write under the city code, which we normally do, then we get the lion's share of it.
Gotcha. And Andy, you think 450 is about there? What are we to date?
Seven months, 289,000.
That's not good. Or
That's
just
for
to come-
for 7 months.
Okay, so we have 5 months left. I don't think it's 600 might be, over ambitious.
It's not gonna hit 600 this year. That's why I brought it back.
Okay. You got it. And, Chief, looking into 2024, anything you're looking at to change in terms of, traffic and enforcement and,
I would love to have more traffic officers that are committed just to traffic, but being down 7 people and another half a dozen people by the. We value, traffic safety a lot, and we do a lot of stuff with traffic safety, but I don't really see how I can commit much more manpower to it. Other than running overtime details or something like that, and we do stuff, around the holidays, usually do something safely with deputies.
Yep.
But, kind of stuff right now.
what's your feel on speed bumps, and all that good stuff?
I like them. I mean, I think the ones on 15th Street are great, they really, I think that they help too. We went from having no speed signs to having probably 6 or 8 speed signs now. And we have some more in our budget for 24 because I think they've really been helpful too. So we're doing more stuff for compliance rather than catching somebody and getting the fine money. We'd really rather be comply
Sure.
because it's a heck of a lot safer.
I also noticed, not everyone, of course, but the solar, speed limits seem to be working in certain areas, over.
Yeah. Most of, actually, I think all of ours are solar operated.
Yeah,
And then we just have to click out the batteries every couple of weeks. They work very well. And you can move them too, which it's not easy, but you can move them, which is nice.
do we, I also have noticed, some state police out there, on Route, Acoustic Street, Route 7, and I noticed, down the Berg and South Troy, is that something coordinating, because I've noticed them more in Troy.
No, it's nothing. I mean, we have a great relationship with the state police, but it's nothing coordinated at this time. A lot of times they'll run traffic on Oakwood or on 142. So that's why they come down Northern Drive and so on. And then, of course, Hoosick Street is, it's a state road, but they don't do a whole lot. They do a lot past Lake Avenue. But most of the stuff in the city is pretty much done by us.
And can't really speed after North Lake and South.
Yeah,
Lake.
no,
That's a whole.
I don't know what time it is.
issue. I'm not even going there, and that is not your fault, chief, okay? We'll blame it all on Supervisor Harrington. I'm kidding. Thank you, chief.
Member Mann.
To what degree, does this revenue reflect towing? For parking tickets or a certain number of violations? Or is that under general services,
Yeah, my understanding is this is just fine money.
just moving violations
Yeah.
and that, okay. Andy, just for Brett, like, just a note for you for when we do talk about that revenue stream. I think the towing fees right now are about $250. And I think under the code, under the contract, I had a constituent foil it, and I think the max that the city was allowed to be charging, or the towing company was allowed to be charging was 75. So there's some kind of disparity there. And I know that there is a new contract, I think with Dauphin, instead of Kennedy's. And so, that information, because obviously $250 tow plus fees, I mean, it happens to you once and that's 30 your rent or a quarter of your rent. That's a lot of money out of people's pockets. So, there's that things there, but if it's not related to moving violations, you guys have to worry about it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Going back to page 90, the facility upgrades of 58,500 are outside of the amount, the 275 or I believe in the capital plan. That is outside of that, so that's additional upgrades to various items in the facilities in the police department. Going on to page 91. I'm gonna let the chiefs go through the changes in a lot of the 300 and 400 accounts because it's operational, specific. So I do think it might be, they know it better than I do. So I'll defer to them.
All right, so under 301 office supplies, we increased that by, looks like about, we increased from 27.5 to 52,000. Increased it by 25,000. And the reason for that was because of our local server hardware, like for all of our digital evidence and Axon and all that stuff. We need to upgrade that system, so we need that money to purchase that. So that was the bulk of it. That was the lion's share of that, at least that 25,000. The other money is just, our regular running business, you know what I mean, for 12 months, buying what we need to buy and so on to run the run the department.
Sure.
The,
Councilmember Kelly.
Long time coming to upgrade our equipment. I mean, we're so antiquated throughout the entire city. Equipment that it's good to see us looking for a purpose. 25,000 is enough to get a server to handle that type of capacity.
So it would be, this is in addition to our regular city server, this one would be more or less a smaller version of a server for just digital evidence. So we scrape off the body cams and everything we have already through a service. If we go out on any sort of incident, we're pulling back USB drives from surveillance video, from corner stores, or personal residences. Currently, any of that external evidence, so anything we don't generate through apps, any external evidence, we just take it on a USB drive and then we put it into our evidence, just physical copies. So we're burning through USB drives because you obviously couldn't use the same USB drive for multiple instances. So the idea here is a standalone server that BIS or contractor would assist us with within our chain of custody. So Mr. Gillette in our property room would be in his area, and then our evidence technicians would input all that digital evidence right to that server. With that comes a little bit of software, because obviously it needs to be a chain of custody. It's not just a regular computer. There's a chain of custody. So you can say, this is the person that accessed that mini mart video. This is the case number that they accessed under, and this is their input with auditing purposes why they accessed. So there's a little bit of an increase just because they see the government coming and it's a specific design, but it's fairly, I think we're gonna expect around low 20s to do it. And that's just the hardware, that's none of the labor that we would.
So what type of protection do we have for all that information on that server? Like, we've all had a server that you look at one day and all of a sudden it's not working.
Yeah.
Or something's infected and now wherever it goes. How will the protection guarantees this information will be safeguarded so that it can't get, are we backing it up? We have programs that are going to guard it from being.
So there's some of the costs. A good question. Ideally, this would be a server that's not connected to any of our other networks. So we're not gonna be able to access it from City Hall, or we're not gonna be able to access it from our offices. It's within property and evidence, so it should be treated just as any of our other residences. Not connected to the internet, and then there's redundancy in it. Typically separate storage that it's copying itself every hour, every night. But it would all be under the control of Mr. Gillette, so you're not having every officer that attempts to be able to access it. It's the detective assigned to the case, and then that provides us or our Professional Standards Bureau the ability to audit monthly, quarterly, whatever it may be, as we design a policy. This is who's accessed this evidence, this is why they've accessed it, and we can add that to our records when we go to trial.
Great, thank you, appreciate that.
Chair?
Council President.
Yep, so, a couple of weeks ago, we met, and Steve, you mentioned the dash cams and the technology. Where would that be here, and what is kind of that timeline going into 2024 and?
Yeah, so all the Axon contracts, it's the lion's share of our equipment budget. That's out of that 30317 line. Because all those contracts are with one body cams, fleet cams, interview room cams, some of our UAS stuff. The timeline remains the same. To begin for everything else is operational other than the fleet cam project. Fleet cam project is going to be the beginning of 2024. Everything's ordered. We're just waiting on a scheduling date, which we're looking at January, February to schedule. The install should be done in a day or so. They come to us. It's the technology isn't really that heavy. It's pretty standard for a vehicle. It's just getting it on site and then having an Axon professional install it. We're looking at determining if we can have Axon train any other local upfitters, so that we have like, all right, we can just bring it here. It's just our concern is we don't want to be put in a position where we're suggesting to Axon, hey, go to this person or this person. We don't want to see preferential. Axon, can you just reach out to people here in this area, pick by whatever measures you pick, and then we'll procure it to our standards. But that's a priority Axon project. It's going to be the beginning of 2023.
And we anticipate all vehicles to have that or certain one,
The marked cars. So
the mark.
I think at this
Okay.
point we have 20 units on order.
I had forgotten, I know you mentioned marked or unmarked, okay? And any other question I think of is we go along. Oh, I'm good, you're just saying it. Very good.
All right, so the next line, 302, there's actually a small decrease in that. 303, there was a decrease of about 56,000, and the reason for that was we have all these COVID supplies and all this stuff that we needed to do the last couple of years that we don't need to do anymore, so we were able to shave quite a bit of money off that line. And we still have some of that stuff, so we haven't committed. 30317 that Steve was just talking about. There's actually a decrease of $40,000 in that line, and that's because the county assuming some of the responsibilities for the records management, the CAD system, and the way things are done. It costs us less money.
Sure.
Council President.
Yep, while you're on the county, I hate to even bring it out, but is there any movement on the encryption? The app, sorry, the app.
My understanding is we're working through procurement. We've still been in discussion with the priorities that we want in the project. They've done some basic structuring, what they learned from last time through the TriTech project. I believe it's cleared, and I don't want to speak to the county, but I believe it's cleared whatever legislative finance they need, so they're up with it.
All right, the next line was 303-103, which there was an increase of $10,000. And that was to help with our drone program. It's purchased through the ERT on their line, but it actually is used in patrol and detective bureau as well. So the increase for that. 30456 vehicles, gas and oil was a decrease of 10,000, and that line is actually managed by City Hall. 30457, there was a decrease of 14,000 in vehicle parts. And that was because there was less needed, because a lot of the vehicles are newer. So there wasn't as much need for parts. However, in the repair line, there was an increase of 27,000 because of the increase in repair costs. So with a transmission, to put a vehicle out to get a transmission used to be like $3,000 and now it's like $6,000. Everything is just, it's crazy with the repair costs and body work too. 40154 is another gas and electric that's run through City Hall, and that was a decrease of 20,000.
Sure.
Council President.
I apologize. There was one more thing and I knew it would come back to me. Our cameras, how are they moving along? I have not heard, a whole lot of negative, which is good. We also talked about some mobile cams. I've seen them in certain neighborhoods. Maybe if you could give us an update on that. And, honestly, we've come a long way over the last, I want to say, year and a half, 2 years, but probably more work to do.
Sure, that's the project that will hopefully just never end at this point. We have built to where we want it to be. So in those initial discussions, when we were talking RFP, we discussed that we wanted our city cam system stood back up and work at its very core, which largely exists in downtown, which was accomplished. The next mission set by Chief Wolf was all right. Now Spiderweb it expanded north and south. We've been delayed in that a little bit because of some of the technology implementations in terms of talk about, but we kind of ended around that. We're going to try a different style of now cell-based cameras, the first of which are up and going up now. Just today, we brought 60 Glen online. There'll be another one up north, some additional ones south, as our intention was the entire time. North and south of the downtown, those neighborhoods need these cameras, or at least public-facing cameras. And so we're underway. We're going to try a different approach with some cell-based cameras. It's an option, and we at least have video in the area. If we like it, we'll continue to press in that direction, but we built some connections with some other local companies to see if we want to potentially attack that from a different angle, but it's on the move. There's some money that is allocated in our budget funding for it, but we've also tried to be real competitive with grants. PCGS just released a statewide grant, which Chief is directed, see if we can grab the line share of that for some surveillance video, and then some other state and local grants that we've applied for that will help facilitate that project. But it's on the move, we're up, things are being saved, and we're expanding this, which is where we wanted to be.
I like the out of the box thinking and just for the public, I think I know, but the difference between what we did have and the new and the cell base.
So we have, our downtown core is all wireless point to point, but if you look at those intersections in the downtown, you'll see a camera hanging, but then there's also typically a little circular white disc or a white square that's taking the data from each intersection and pointing it at another intersection. Eventually, all of that data is collected on State Street and it points up State Street and down into our building. And so it's wireless, but you're not really traveling over the internet for that. Because of the distance from our core in the north and the south, and also because we haven't necessarily accomplished what we wanted to do, which was get real estate on top of large buildings in the city, where they would point up to. We attempting this LTE base, which is similar to a cell phone at the site. We had some success with it. The Janine Pompey Park, we've had a system up there for a little bit. We didn't want to broadcast that. We weren't
Right.
necessarily sure confident in it, but it's been successful there. So I hopefully can reach out to some of the other parts of it. And that's just a cell modem at the site. It's still collecting video, and then it's going out to the internet, for lack of a better diagram, and then to our station. But through that whole travel, we still have those same security concerns, but it's backed up through that CGS compliance stuff, which is all of our data. All of our data, like our radio, is encrypted, so that we trust that it isn't accessed. But so far, so good. 6 and Glen is out. See another one up north and 2 south, in the next week.
And, you know, Steve, Six and Glen, I mean, we all know, it's just such a hot spot, so, you know, that's great to hear. I mean,
Concern is displacement of the crime. We have one mobile trailer, which is what was originally designed for, so that would be our roving hotspot. If we displace it somewhere else, we're going to bring that trailer in. And then, speaking of that same DCBS grant, the chief wanted to pursue potentially a second mobile trailer, just to give some additional coverage in the city, because it's, so far, we've seen an outcry from our detectives, but also the community. Hey, we have this going on, we have a mobile trailer there, which is good. We want to hear that, because it's not meant to be an offensive or aggressive device. It's meant to provide an extra layer of security.
Yeah, and I've noticed, a large one is still over in the bird by, the high school. And, our residents, I think in that case, residents were super cooperative, correct?
Everywhere it's been so far, it's been requested typically either by the residents or detectives. There's obviously some concern anytime police are doing anything
Sure.
surveillance, so we resolve that typically by just a face-to-face conversation with that individual, essentially showing them, hey, this is why it's here, this is why we were requested here. We're only here to the extent that issue is resolved, and we got another list to go to bring some, so it's all temporary measure. It's always public facing.
And the ultimate goal is now the cells. Do you plan to move them, the cell base, or leave them hopefully?
We could, but I think ideally they would stay, they're at a somewhat of a cost savings to that structured wireless point to point. And if this grant funding continues, and we can continue this project, now that we feel comfortable with where we are with the system, we can just add these typical budgeted funds for Sprung, and as we mentioned before, that spider web out.
Right.
To the point where we have most of the city public facing covered some sort.
Awesome, thank you.
Chair,
Councilman Gully.
do the cameras give us the clarity that we need compared to like the other ones, that, you know, they're just outdated, pixels aren't, but is that the right word, pixels? They're very low.
Yeah,
But I'm saying, you know, these new modern cameras, they can pick up that pin from 5 blocks away. Do we have something that we can really get clarity? So when we're looking, we can't say, oh, we can't identify, but we see it.
and
I love-
between the camera's resolution and the information we're grabbing, to be able to identify vehicles. And I'll be honest, just the local law enforcement's ability to know the people involved, they're putting out these bulletins on individuals, and the pictures are clear enough that whether it's our officers or other people in the crime analysis network, we're identifying, I'd say, more people now than ever through surveillance video and just knowledge of the community that we're dealing.
Thank you, appreciate it. Oh, and by the way, resolution was the word I was trying to get.
We're there.
Okay. The pixel even legal? Okay.
All right. Resolutions or proclamation? Oh, no, that's for another meeting. Right? So 40155 is just another city hall line, really water and sewer. That's pretty much unchanged. Our postage line 402,000 is steady, it's the same amount. 403 is printing and advertising. We increased that by $3,000, because, you know, we're trying to market ourselves, you know, we're still looking for laterals. I don't know if, depending on what happens with this list, that we're gonna be giving another test again next year. So out of that line comes all the CPU, you know, community policing unit, swag and stuff, as well as our, community outreach, retention and engagement. Those guys too, that stuff comes out of there. We do the barbecues and giveaways and things like that, where we engage the community. So that's that line. 40468 repairs to equipment is increased by $2,000, and that's just because it costs more. Things just cost more. 40568 is rentals, rental of equipment, and that's just steady, stayed the same. 40591, there's an increase of $20,000, and that was for Flock, which is our LPRs, that they went up. They went up $500 a year a piece to subscribe to them. And our Faro cost, which Faro is our, it's like a scanning tool that we use at crime scenes to take like a 3D picture of everything. Like if there's a big crime scene, it's very useful for prosecution and for our detectives. So that's something we've been doing a while. They're just increased costs. Prisoner meals, that's the same amount. Dues and subscriptions, 408 actually went down about $4,000, and that's because of Lexipol, which is our policy management system that we started to do in 2023, but it's less as you move forward. So there was a startup cost, but now it doesn't cost as much moving forward. You know what I mean, for like an annual. So that was a good thing. 409 is consulting services, and we increased that by 20,000. I'm going to let Steve talk about that because this is back to the IT stuff.
So historically, the police department has funded its own hardware for what we do, whether it's computers at the station, computers at the field, obviously our radio systems, but any technological hardware we bought out of our budget because it's a large operation and there's a lot of technology involved, and that's been before my time and consuming with my time. We offset some of that with grant funding, but it's always not always applicable to what we're doing or potentially beneficial. With all that hardware and software that comes in, comes an incredible burden that we then place on BIS. The people that we have in BIS are some of the best of the best, and we truly appreciate a relationship with them, but we recognize the incredible burden that we're placing on them by our technological presence. And then when things go down, the emergency nature of our operation, being 24/7, it's not necessarily I can wait till Monday thing. Sometimes it is, many times it isn't. We're up against it right now. We've been up against it because of the vacancy of our network manager, network admin position in the city. So we've slowed some of our projects down, and we've also begun to see some critical failures, and some stopgaps have been in place to address some of those most critical failures. Reporting for our telephones, obviously we want that in place so that we can do audits on our internal operations. Some of our internal hardware protection, those security measures we were talking about, we've been able to stopgap with some of those temporary measures provided by the city. But these other projects have now been slowed because of the absence of that person. And in addition, because the burden we place on BIS, so whether it's the city surveillance system, whether it's some of our accident project, we're still trying to find ways to get things done, but it's not necessarily the most effective because we're trained police officers. Do our best to get the training we do and try to understand what we do about technology. We don't want to get too far over our skis because of the importance of what we do. So in coordination with Mayor's office, with Andy, we're trying to look at different options in the absence of a network manager, but also even when a network manager is present in Troy, the fact that the police department system puts such an incredible burden on it. So the idea here is to start working with the city to go through procurement of some sort of outside contract that would have the necessary security licenses, the protections that we provide for either a background check or some of the exams they have to take in order to be able to access the data that we have access to, and then put them in direct coordination with BIS. And just as a team, we're not looking to carve away and go on our island, but it's hey, we're going to support BIS. This is the person that has access to our network. BIS, you work with them to connect what they need to connect so that we can reestablish the systems that have gone down, but also they continue to march forward with the other systems. that we're-
I do want to note one thing as part of that, there's, you very well may see a transfer, you probably will see a transfer for this year to allow the police department, that once they get through procurement, to have money available to them. If we're able to have a finance meeting next week, I'll put it on that agenda. If not, we can put it on in December, but so that when they get through this, when they get through procurement, that there will be an appropriation for them there this year to begin this concept and this, you know, especially with some of the projects that they have to do. So it's in 2024's budget, but we are in discussions about moving forward with an ordinance to do a budget transfer to appropriate funding for 2023 as well.
Council President.
Thank you. Andy, what would the appropriation be for, like 5K or something like that, or?
But more than that, we were talking somewhere between 50 and 100,000.
Oh,
to get it started.
to get it.
To get it started, and then it would be on purchase, you know, they could encumber the funds this year. If they were able, you know, we'll get them through procurement, and then they could encumber the funds. Set forward with their projects this year. So it's not being held over until January, because I do know some of these projects are time sensitive.
Right, but you're anticipating 50K just to start out?
Correct.
Really?
That's what we were talking about.
Did NARP already go out?
Not yet.
You anticipate NARP going out that quick and?
I would, these gentlemen next to me are very good at getting through procurement very quickly.
There, that's good. There you go, Steve. There you go.
I just want to make you know that ideally, because I realize people listen to people talk, ideally that RFP is sitting at a table with BIS, figure out how can we all benefit?
Right.
Not, again, it's not to carve us out, like.
Right.
It's really just hopefully using our funding, just as we bought our own hardware in the past. Now we're gonna come to the table, we realize what a behemoth we are, we want to come to some sort of support.
Right.
Like, hey, what do you think looks best in an RFP? How can we write that? Because we want the tasks to be advanced enough, they can handle what we're asking them to handle, but simple enough that we're not looking to replace it with BIS.
Right. Okay. I'm glad that you clarified that, obviously, and I would have no problem scheduling a finance before the regular meeting, so, you know, keep me posted and,
I will.
okay.
All right, the next line was canine supplies, 40924, that remained steady. Confidential funds, 40980 remained steady. 410, there was a training, there was a decrease of $10,000. And that was because pretty much everybody is trained in EDPRT, and that runs about $9,000-10,000 that class. And we only need one class next year. We historically had 2 classes, sometimes 3, but since we're up to speed now, we were able to reduce that amount. The 411,
Yep. Real quick, I wasn't able to catch it, but Steve, you posted something, it might have been on LinkedIn, training that just happened. And I only caught the end of it, I was scrolling through, wanna update on that, update us on that, sounded,
Yeah, it's just our
pretty high level.
fall supervisors. So the zone, the supervisor meeting, recently promoted 1, promoted 2 in the near future. That's first line supervisor, sergeant, and their first, New York State accredited course. And then we offer staffing there to talk about past critical incidents, Troy, what we've learned, what we think we've done right, what potentially opportunities we have there, and just connecting with other local departments, water bleeds, Schenectady, talk, okay, how to better manage these. So it's an important opportunity for them to get some base level knowledge of how to be a supervisor, but hopefully some time to see that if you haven't dealt with critical incident yet, this is how
Right.
we handle it.
Who runs it?
It's sponsored by the zone, so our regional law enforcement zone, Schenectady hosts it, and then we support just as chief team's on one of the boards, we just support the instructors and advisors.
Okay.
Next line is travel for 11. That's an increase of $2,000 just because it costs more to travel. But that travel includes training, detective bureau, prisoner pickups, investigations, and so on. Covers them. 423 uniforms, an increase of 20,000. And the reason for that is the expected hiring of new officers. To outfit them in the initial stages is pretty expensive. 424 medical expenses, a decrease of $3,000. We just found that we haven't used all that we had budgeted, so we decreased it. And we have less people out on like extended sick leave, that require like an arbitrary doctor to look at like an independent review, which they're costly, but we haven't needed them this much. And that's it.
Health insurance, but I know that's, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, I'll let Andy.
I mean, the health insurance did go up. I think the benefit line that needs to be noted is the pension line, which this one alone is up $400,000.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Are there any questions?
Chair,
Council President?
Andy, can we, go quickly, the capital, there were a couple questions that we had asked that, you said, let's wait for PO. Thank you. And while we're moving, to capital, Chair, I did notice, somebody just texted me, Governor Hochul announced 55 mil to enhance emergency communications. I'm trying to look at the list to see if Rensselaer County, if it came to counties, if Rensselaer County received any. Oh, there it is. Looks like Rensselaer, did receive, an award. So it did receive funding for the 911, emergency, communication system. I can forward it to you guys, but are we gonna get a piece of that at all? Or, I mean, I know I came in a few minutes late. When does that contract with the county come up? And Steve, I'll send you, it looks like she just announced it, 55 mil.
It's yearly funding for them.
Yeah.
The counties get county
Oh, so
funding
it's
for
not big.
communications, and it's a significant amount of funding.
And
It's based on activity or all volume. But I think it's a good talking point for those contract negotiations. There's plenty that could be addressed. And there's still, again, a wonderful working relationship with our people at BES, with the people at BES. But there's room for a lot of discussion in that contract negotiation for services they would offer, and then potentially additional influence we could have on their operations, or at least in policy. But that's standard funding for them, but it's a lot of communications funding goes to the county. We're not eligible for it, so we didn't.
right, of course, yeah, it's all the counties in New York City. And I apologize, you might have told the council, when does that contract expire?
It's end of 2024. This is the last one.
Coming up, wow. Any ideas,
Bye.
okay. Cool. We'd like to hear.
Page 266 at the bottom is the police department capital plan. So $625,000 for next year, $325,000 of market patrol SUVs, $50,000 for one unmarked SUV. That $375 is in the proposed budget. Then $250,000 for facility upgrade.
Sure.
Council President?
Yep, I think that was, the stumping one, the 250, and he wasn't quite sure, not that I put more things out, but he said to bring it back here. and ask you, Chief.
Yeah, so the facility upgrades that we're talking about are the women's locker room. Is woefully small, and we have more female officers than we've had in the past. And it needs to be built out, so that's gonna be pretty costly. We also needed some improvements at the range and the multi-purpose building, which is right next to the police station. We're looking at, there's an apron on the back of that, enclosing that, so that we have additional storage and use space there. And physical improvements, physical security improvements to the parking lot that's behind the administration building, as well as the area that's directly behind that multi-purpose building too. So gates and maybe automated, card reader kind of things like that, because right now we're getting strangers in and out all the time, and it's just, it's not good the way it is. It has to be improved.
And I was wondering, do we have a partnership with Trusco on their lot, or are they just?
The only thing, they provide, I think 3 spots for the judges. The rest of those spots are their spots. They're kind,
They're very.
and that they let the officers, especially after hours, they really don't care. Unless it snows, then they want everybody to move so they can plow, but, no, we actually ask the officers not to park there unless you're gonna be quick. But, a lot of the times those spots are taken up, not appropriately by people in court. So, because you have courthouse. No, none of those spots are ours.
In EMD, the 250, that's not budgeted, correct?
Yes. Not
Not budgeted,
much. Correct.
correct. So we will have the fund.
Chairman.
Councilmember Mann?
Just sort of generally, because it's been a theme throughout all of our budget hearings. One of the things I've observed, how many grants your department does pursue and write and receive. And there are obviously a lot of grants available for law enforcement, the feds, the state. And I mean, if you have a sense of about what dollar amount you brought in over the course of the year from federal and state grants. And I'll ask even, and like what percentage of the department's budget does that end up approximating? There's nothing like math, that's what you're.
740,000 is about one of the massive ones is GIVE, which Chief Wolf and Catherine White chair. And then we have very few personnel balance grants for about $40,000. Pay for overtime for officers from the feds for anti-violence. And then the balance is equipment related grants that usually come through Homeland Security, largely for security we pass through. That's about a yearly figure, and then there's a small candidate grant.
So sort of overall about $740,000 in grants flows into the department, is that accurate?
Sounds, I would agree with that amount. I will say, when you ask about the percentage of their budget, we don't recognize grants. We try to really limit the amount of grant. That's going to be a conversation with the fire department budget for the saber grant, and how that's accounted for, because grants, we really made a concerted effort to put all grants into the miscellaneous special revenue. So when you say what percentage of the budget, it's really the exception of the overtime, the personnel costs that are there, which I think
Because
like you said, 40,000. A lot of the other grants are for one-time purchase, but they're very good at getting grants. They're very good at getting grants for equipment purchases and things of that nature. There's a lot of one-offs.
And the budgeting philosophy is, put one-offs that maybe will not be there in a year in the operating budget, and it's in that separate account, so that they're great.
That's one, there's 2 reasons. There's that reason, so that your budget stays consistent year to year and its total sum of grants are outside of the true operating costs. The other reason is that a lot of these grants transcend fiscal years.
Mhm.
Whereas the general fund has general water, sewer, garbage have finite fiscal years.
Mhm.
Putting it in the miscellaneous special revenue fund, that fund itself is set up so that you have many funds within it that are specific to the program.
Mhm.
Those that transcends fiscal years, and the fiscal year is the length of the grant. So if you have a 3-year grant, put in the miscellaneous special revenue fund, and it's there for 3 years, you're not constantly bringing back budget amendments to reappropriate, and that doesn't come until February or March when you close it out. And then the departments have a hard time spending in that time period where you're reappropriating money. We used to have them in the general fund, and we had that problem where you would have this dead period of no grant appropriation made because my office was closing out the grants for the year. We don't have that problem with the way we've now restructured.
And it seems like it's been a really well-functioning solution and easier to track that money, and also sort of compare, if the trend that you're seeing of being really successful in pursuing and receiving grants, is an ongoing trend. And it's something that, I've noticed about your department, and hopefully something that we can continue to bring to other departments. And so, I know that certainly takes staff time, and whether or not it's appropriate, maybe down the road, to have a full-time grant writer or someone within the department, that's their sole focus. Is that something that is?
There was a grant writer for a little while.
Yeah.
But we've pretty much always written our own grants.
Yeah.
Because just the institutional knowledge makes it easier to write those grants. And while they're cumbersome, they're not really that difficult.
Mhm.
I think we usually get them. It's worth trying.
Well, thank you very much for that information.
Sure.
It's President.
Just two cleanup items, the SRO, I did see the reimbursement is, still at 105. For example, on page 8, all good, and that is Troy only, correct, chief? No, but the reimbursement, I thought was from Turtle, that's from both, the
Yeah,
reimbursement.
that's involved.
What is it, 52.5 of these, like, how,
35 per officer.
thank you. Okay,
Yeah, that, moving forward, I mean, that, we're in the middle of something now, but that's probably going to increase.
what do you think, Chief?
Well, something more realistic, because it's taking a full-time officer away and only getting half the pay, let alone benefits and everything else. The other agencies around the county and across are charging a lot more, so. We had spoken with Lansingburg, but they had wanted a second SRO,
Right,
and we're just not able to do it manpower wise, but they were agreeable to an increase, so.
yeah, the mayor and myself have, and the deputy mayor met with Timmy and Councilmember Gully, the district, the superintendent, we've been starting to meet with, and the superintendent mentioned another SRO for the bird. and-
In the meantime, we've come up with a solution to help him, and at a cost. I mean, he was willing
Yeah.
to pay for it.
Oh, yeah,
But maybe at some point when we get up to speed again, we'll be able to have another full-time officer up there, but it's not doable right now.
gotcha. And,
Or if they're gonna pay the full boat, then
right,
maybe,
Sure.
maybe hire, let us hire another.
that's what I was going to. Okay. Good to know. And then tomorrow night, chief, we have GS and we'll be going over parking. I'm just curious, what is the coordination with our parking enforcement and, only because I know sometimes they'll call the police and sometimes the parking enforcement. What's your whole feel on this, and would you like to see it maybe change?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I'd like to see parking enforcement a little bit more involved in in our day-to-day operations and not tying up a police officer for a parking matter.
Right.
Which tends to happen a
Yeah.
lot, and like, especially for events, we
Right.
get tasked with hours of, at a much higher rate of pay, and you're taking that officer away from other more important duties, to move cars for, say, the farmer's marketers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
I,
And nothing against
no,
them, I
Oh
mean,
my
I just
God.
wish that
that,
if
no,
their
I-
scheduling was different, or we were able to use them
Right.
more, because I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's definitely some room for improvement, with that department, a real synergy, but, I won't go there because I'm running, so I don't want to mix and mingle, but I do want to say, I have seen an opening that department. Yep, thank you. Go ahead. Oh, I apologize, Chair. I'm so sorry. You literally just struck a chord. I have it somewhere in all these papers, animal control. Can we, speaking of dog, can we just touch upon that real quick? It's honestly a bag of worms, but we talked about the other day, there's $100,000 where we're taking care of, loose dogs that are hit, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but overall, the animal control, we call it a department, not a department. There's one person. He's literally 24/7. He is, I feel, just totally overwhelmed. Have we ever thought about taking a look at that and maybe a part-time to help them out, or what's your thoughts on?
I think we could use a second one, or at least a part-timer. I mean, Kevin does phenomenal work. I mean, he's great, and he helps us any way that he can, and he comes out whenever he can, but I mean, for instance, when he's on a vacation, he has a backup. Backup isn't always there, I mean, the other municipalities, he like a lot of things, I mean, he's the kind of person that if he's the backup, he's gonna be there, but his backup isn't always there for him, which is a bummer for us, because
Yeah.
that puts us in a bind.
Yeah, and we actually just had a recent incident and it was on the weekend and, Kevin's like, I wish I could get to it because I know it's not going to get tended to. It's a dead animal and DEC, they're not going to pick it up. It wasn't a deer. It was a possum and dogs were, running to the possum in the neighborhood and, it's a big quality of life issue. And saying that, it had to sit there for a couple days and, so,
Yeah, that could be another,
cool. No, I didn't.
because I don't always think
Yeah.
that should be Kevin's job,
Yeah, I'm with you.
because it isn't out in the county.
I was going to ask, you know what, we can talk offline. I totally agree, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that issue, because, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Yeah. Oh,
Any other questions?
if I still have the floor, the chair, thank you, Chair, just Chief, in 2024, what are you looking at? Yes, all this, but what else, would you like to, maybe delve into?
Well, yeah, I mean, I want, my big thing is more community engagement. We're looking at a vendor next Friday for some e-bikes, because that will get the officers up on the hill a lot easier. We've actually been speaking with residents up there, and they love seeing the guys and gals on the bikes. So when I was recently at a conference, I took a look at some e-bikes, and so I'm having somebody come down. So I want to really push more of that community involvement and community engagement, and because I think it's really paid dividends over the past 12, 18 months, that we've really connected with a lot of the community again, and having our, Anthony Conyers, running our community engagement, committee, which is made up of a lot of good officers that really enjoy being out there and intermingling and being a part of the community. All those things together, in the give details, which many times we run more as community engagement details, not enforcement details. Because we really are just looking for that connection, because that's what makes people feel safe, and that's what makes people want to help us when, you know, when we have a crime that needs to be solved. So that, you know, that and more, we could do some more stuff with the youth. I mean, I'd like to do that. I always wanted to do like a fishing program. That's something that, I'll get working on in the spring, ready for the summer. So.
And, you know, I just want to thank all of you and obviously the sergeants and other command staff and the patrol for all you do.
Oh, yeah, I can't say enough about our rank and file. I mean, they really put out and they do a fantastic job. And most times people show a lot of gratitude for it, which makes me feel good. You know, what I mean, that they're not out there banging their head against the wall and the person doesn't want them there. 9 out of 10 times the person's very happy with the service they got and that we were able to help them. So I'm very grateful for that. But the amount of work that they do and being down manpower, I think that overall, the whole culture of the department is what helps retain people here, even though the pay is lesser than some places. Some of the benefits are better, but it's the feeling that you're important here and that you're cared about and that we have your back, and you know that this is one big family that's here to serve the public and do the best we can to make this a safe place. So, you know, I love this place. I love the department.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sharon?
Councilmember Min?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to also mention, you know, sometimes the impacts that we have, we don't really realize. And, you know, in downtown, you know, one of the things that the community police officers have been a huge asset. And I hear very consistent positive feedback because, you know, when we think about how the city interacts with individual businesses, individual people, where they work, where they live, you know, people show up for a ribbon cutting and then they have a problem and they call it, you know, and then of course the time they call the cops. And so I really wanted to say, I think one of the investments in the community, the investment in the community policing and that engagement, and I see it throughout the city where they're coming to neighborhood meetings and getting that granular knowledge. I have heard consistent, excellent feedback from business owners, from downtown residents who, you know, they experience a lot of the stuff that we've had the safety meetings on. And it's also, and those our two community police officers have also really become part of what has led to some really interesting economic development, specifically in fighting the graffiti throughout downtown, which was horrible after COVID. It was bad. Those property crimes it's expensive to clean up, and we're in a historic district, so you can't just slap code names on it. And their participation and their focus on one quality of life issue among many others, but especially Officer O'Neill, helped spark the discussions that then led to the investment of our ARPA funds into Church Street Alley and the murals that just went into play. We brought artists from not only regionally, locally, but throughout the country and throughout the world. And that is going to be, and it's already proving to be, a huge draw of tourist dollars. It all has this ripple effect. And it's taken one of the alleys that, you know, I've lived in for 15 years. I can count on one hand the number of times I've walked down that alley by myself. And in the last couple of weeks, that has totally changed. So, you know, like where we put our money in budget hearing for sometimes so dry, but there is that ripple effect, and it brings money back into the city in terms of investment and it does bring that really. Police is one of the police and fire are two of the where people engage the most with the city. When they roll into City Hall, they're paying a bill. But they're calling you guys for help and fire for help. And it does show, so thank you.
Yeah, I love the murals too. I mean, and it has a great effect in that usually people that do graffiti don't mess with murals. And just like under the Hoosick Street Bridge, all those that look beautiful, you know, and nobody messes, which is great. It's a worthwhile investment and pleasant.
Well, I want to thank you all for your participation tonight. On behalf of the council, we thank you for all you do every day. And
Thanks.
you're,
We thank you for funding it.
you're free to go. You've done your duty for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why, you funded that? Well, you know, it's a little bit.
And you should.
Oh. We'll wait for our controller, but thank you to all for your participation this evening, and we'll have some good questions for you, I'm sure.
So if we could, before Andy comes back, I
Sure.
just wanted to state something. Before we start, I wanted to just clarify an issue to head off any potential confusion. You will recall that over the past 2 years, 22 and 23, we've used ARPA funds to cover Medic 3. Medic 3 is the additional medic rig that runs part-time to alleviate pressure on our system. Sometimes we refer to it as surge staffing, sometimes we refer to it as peak staffing, sometimes we just refer to it as Medic 3. But what it boils down to is that it adds additional staffing during the 12 busiest hours of the day. This expenditure and this expense, this expense and this revenue is not part of the general fund. It is part of a miscellaneous special revenue, which Andy just explained a few minutes ago. So this expenditure or these additional staff members remains a priority for the department. And we believe we have a path to fund it once again with ARPA funds in 2024. So we'll bring that plan forward to you shortly, likely at the November Finance Committee, as we did last year. Continuing this staffing level will provide another year, allowing the incoming mayor, the incoming council, the incoming fire chief to look at making decisions about 2025 and take into consideration the reduction in vacancies in the department, as well as recommendations that might come from the staffing study. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure that you understood that it doesn't appear in this budget. It never has appeared in the budget, that we handle this on an annual basis outside of the budget. We'll be bringing that information to you shortly, maybe, the next available finance committee is the likely target for us. So with that,
It is.
I'll turn it over to Andy.
Thank you.
So when do I get to speak?
The public forum is at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Here. And that is approximately 600, is that the number, Andy?
Yes.
Okay, just want to verify.
You're on page,
I apologize, Chair.
yes.
And so I take it that, does that show in the final budget again be under any line? And at the final, when it's passed, is there a line anywhere for that in the final?
The peak staffing?
Yeah.
No, because it's in this miscellaneous special revenue fund.
Okay, so not
Not in the
anywhere.
budget.
Okay. All right, just want to verify. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Doty.
Andy, can you tell us how much is in our miscellaneous revenue fund, special revenue? Is that a fund?
It's a. Yes, yes, it's a fund. I'm trying to, so with that currently holds safer, so for the fire department, the safer grant,
Yeah.
the AFG grant,
Paper grant, and would you say AMG?
AFG grant, 2 AFG grants. The one for the overtime that we're gonna talk about in a few minutes, and then the other being the washer and dryer grant that was approved at the beginning of the month. For the police department, it includes the gift grant. It includes all the police department, I mean, there's a slew of them. SLEP PP every year of that grant, which is for technology. If there are any left, the ERT team grants. The GIVE grant is in there. Police traffic services is in there, the other traffic, child passenger safety is in there. Most of the planning department grants that are not capital project based, so your implementation grant is in there, the zoning ordinance grant is in there. There's a couple other planning grants that are in there, and then ARPA is in there. Non-city capital project, ARPA related projects are in the miscellaneous.
Non-city capital.
Yeah, I mean, I say all that to say there's like budgetary appropriations of. Well, probably close at this point to $30 million. But again, it transcends fiscal years, and this is consistent with what other. Local governments and school districts do. When I came back to the city last year, I had seen it, and it's more efficient for the comptroller's office. The OSC prefers it, and Bonadio, when we met when I came back, and we were talking about the differences between where I was and here, we had talked about this is better and more consistent with what places do. That's why we started making those changes September, October of last year.
Chair.
Councilmember or Council President.
Yep, maybe in the future, I mean, for the council, and I'm not gonna be here on the council, but if you could maybe do a quarterly update, where
That's something that could be, that's something that could be discussed.
maybe not quarterly.
Yeah. It's because a lot of that too depends, because it's by project, it's certainly something that could be discussed,
Yeah.
with reporting somehow on it, is it off? Like, is it 6 months, off months of the
Right.
court? No, it's not even, it's something that has to be envisioned somehow.
Get it, I do, but maybe, trying to think of, some reporting mechanism for the council.
And I will note, it's anytime you see a budget amendment with Schedule A that has CM as the fund letter.
Not Carmella.
Yes, not Carmella Mantel, but any budget amendment you see with CM in it is the miscellaneous special revenue. Fund.
Yep.
Okay, moving on.
Here, no.
So if you go to start at page 104, the increase in permanent salaries is based off of the recently approved UFA contract. As part of that, the salary increases for the UFCA contract, in contractual step increases. I do want to point out on page 108, salary savings line of $768,000. Those are the costs associated for the, but that's the cost associated for the 14 firefighters who will be paid for through the SAFER grant. Their wages and benefits are paid through for the general fund, and then we will move that in the comptroller's office to the miscellaneous special revenue fund. Those $768,000 is the budgetary cost of the SAFER grant 2024. When I say budgetary cost, that would be the cost borne in that other fund. It's the savings in the general fund from that.
Sure.
Councilmember Gully.
And Andy, that covers what, the first 3 years? That is the same grant, 3 years?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving down, I do want to note overtime, where the overtime appropriations were kept the same from 2023 to 2024. That was keeping in mind that the fact that we have the AFG grant, the Assistance to Firefighters grant for those individuals who will go to paramedic school next year. The overtime shift that's covered right now, while that individual is in the academy, is paid for by the general fund. That same shift come in 2024, while they're in paramedic school, will be paid for by the AFG grant, which is again in the miscellaneous special revenue. So that's why overtime stayed the same, is that there's cost borne in 2023 in the general fund, that same shift in 2024 will not be borne by the general. So there was consideration for that in the budget when we put these numbers together. The rest of the numbers in the 100 account were all based off contractual requirements. Unless if there's any questions similar to police department, I will turn it over to Chief McMahon to go through changes in 2, 3.
Sure.
Councilmember Gully.
Just out of curiosity. What was the story with the medic tree? It was never supposed to be in the budget? I mean, it's not anywhere, right? It's
It's
just,
in the miscellaneous. I mean,
right, but I'm just saying it was never supposed to be in the budget, or
yes, it wasn't in the budget for 2022.
it was already planned for, is that something that was, I mean, you were planning to use that 600K out of that account?
It wasn't something that was considered to be put into the general fund for 2024.
All right, great, thank you.
Okay. you can move on.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Once again, this is a, I don't like to use this term, but it's basically like a status quo budget. We're in a little bit of a transition with the fire department. We have 17 individuals in the academy right now. They're gonna come out, they're gonna go to paramedic school. This budget represents keeping the doors open, keeping the level of services that we're providing to the city right now at a constant. The only major change that we have coming into 2024 is we're bringing on a mechanics helper to give our mechanic some assistance. Our mechanic has been out for couple times this year for different surgeries. That has placed a burden on our maintenance program. Chief Behringer's done a fantastic job keeping our rigs on the road. And we thought that it would be prudent to bring in a mechanics helper. We have slight increases in our major budget lines. We have a slight increase in our 303. Our 303 is our basic budget line in which a great majority of our expenses come out of. We have a budget increase in the 30319. That's our medical expenses. That represents the increase in call volume that we have going on. We threw some extra cash into that to take care of the additional expenses that we have going on. We dropped in our 304.
Chair,
Mr. President.
yep, can we just go back to 103, overtime? What are we at now, Andy? Thank you.
$1.7.
1.7 mil. And we're recommending 1 mil for 2024, but we're at 1.7.
$700,000 is gonna come from the AFG.
Thank you, that's whatever, thank you. And then is that over on revenue or is that in the special miscellaneous BM? Okay. We're piecing it all together.
Good.
We're getting there, brother. Okay,
All right, so like I said, the 303 and the 30319, there's slight increases in them. They represent this different, they represent the cost of doing business. If you notice the 304, 0057 and 0058, those are our vehicle expenses. If you take a look at them, there's reductions in them. However, there is an increase in the repairs to equipment. We're shuffling moving some repairs around into different line items. And on top of that, we're also bringing in the mechanics helper, and we're hoping that repairs that we send out in the vehicle repairs, the 0058, is we can reduce that by having the mechanics helper, that a lot of the repairs will be taken care of in-house. Yes,
Eric Chief.
Councilmember Kelly.
That's a big bump in repairs for equipment. $75,000. Is there a specific use for that?
that right there is
Oh, 68.
0068. Yep. The Bearcom Communications is, we're throwing some additional revenue into that for our communications. We also have some testing for the fire equipment, for the fire certification stuff. We also threw some additional money in there for our overhead doors. Our overhead doors seem to have been taking a beating. Each opener on the overhead door costs $3,000. We have mandatory contracts for our stretchers and all of our EMS, stuff, the stretchers and the stair chairs, to get that stuff replaced when it has issues. And also our different repair and service contracts for the different equipment that we have throughout the city.
So Chief, normally we have those type of repairs anyways, right?
Correct.
So the additional money must be going toward the communication. And equipment,
Yes,
so like equipment certification is something that happens every year, right?
equipment certification.
What is
However,
necessary?
it's increased substantially.
Yeah.
The,
I may just for 1 second.
All right,
The budget amount you see in this, the current budget amount is the current budget as of September 30th, 2023. So it includes amendments that we've already done. The original budget amount for this year was $110,000. And $40,000 of it was requested to be transferred out of the repairs and equipment line. My guess is it went to the vehicle repair line or a vehicle account, which, I mean, that is,
so
that's the tricky part of the document, that it's reflective of transfers and amendments that have already been made this year. So it's really going from 110 to 145. It's not being doubled up. It's going up 35,000.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
thank you.
Dollars and cents.
What else would you like to know about the budget?
Sure.
Council President.
We could go over a number of things.
Okay,
I think first, and thank you, Chief, and we're sorry to see you go, and wish you lots of luck and all that good stuff. The firehouse, can you give us an update where that is, where that's going? And, I'll do my punch list and then we can go through it. Then I'd like to go through the capital plan, and talk about that. And then I want to go to the revenues of ALS and, thank you.
all right, we'll start out with the station. There has been a tremendous delay in the station. It seems as though there has been a tremendous delay coming out of Corporation Council. We got together with the seller of the property. From the time that we made an agreement with the seller of the property, there was a request to do a phase 1 assessment on the property. That paperwork went into the Corporation Counsel's office. More than
I'm sorry, is that phase 1 environmental?
a phase 1 environmental. There's actually 4 pieces of property there, or 3 pieces of property there. The phase 1 environmental, we reached out to CT Mail. We have a contract with CT Mail. They immediately sent over a contract. I was informed that I cannot sign that contract, that contract has to go through Corporation Council. It went into the Corporation Council and there it died.
How much ago was that?
That, I believe that we came to an agreement on the price in April. That contract was recently executed for the phase 1. The phase 1 came back and suggested that we do a phase 2. It is my understanding that the property owner does not want to do a phase 2 on the property, and he would just like to walk away from the deal. So I'm not exactly certain where we stand with it now. I wish I had better news for you.
Yeah, that's, disappointing. The phase 2, the phase 1, I take it, the owner paid for phase 1.
City paid for phase 1.
And so the owner is actually,
The city of Troy would also pay for the phase 2.
Yeah.
And he does not want to, from my understanding, it is my understanding that he would rather not take a look into a phase 2. He would just rather sell the property. I've been informed by, people in this room that the lot has been paved over. During the phase 1, the lot was paved over. He just doesn't want to do a phase 2, and I'm told that he would just rather sell it during the normal course of this.
Okay, is there a contingency, chief, I know a couple other spots for Litka, et cetera, I mean, something's gotta give.
Yep,
so
yep,
what-
we're gonna revisit them. And we're also, back looking for, a suitable site for the station. When we first started this project, there was discussion on building a temporary site, developing the site that it's on, and then, rehabbing it, moving back onto that site. With the, moving forward to buy a whole new piece of property. That plan was scrapped, and we started down this road in which we were going to purchase a piece of property, build a station, move out of our current station into the new station. And it's going on for a very long time. So the agreement was come to in April, of 23, but I gotta believe that we started speaking to Mr. Marquis much prior to that April. It certainly is going on for, I would dare say, over a year.
Here,
Sadly,
yeah,
it shouldn't, we should certainly move a little bit quicker.
sorry to hear this. Chief.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
Want to, move, my punch list of capital plan, the revenue, and then an update on the report, if there's any.
Sure, absolutely. So-
Staffing, and
so-
then,
We'll go with the capital plan.
perfect, thanks, chief.
So the capital plan, these are, dare I say, needed items. The pumper for $950,000,
Page 267.
page 267, I'm sorry, I should have stated that on the other.
Okay.
Page 267. Pumpers are 2 years out. This pumper would be slated to replace a 2009. By the time this pumper lands in the city of Troy, the pumper that it would be replacing would be 18 years old. And it's high time that we should truly try to replace our engines a little bit quicker, our pumpers a little bit quicker than 18 to 20 years. However, this, in my opinion, this is, you need to fund this. The ambulance.
Chief.
No.
President.
On the pumper, chief, the UFA president, Eric Wisher mentioned maybe it would be cost benefit, and we raised it last week. We figured we would wait for you and talk to you to purchase two, rather than one by the time they phased in, et cetera, and we might be able to get a better, cost benefit from purchasing two. What's your feelings on that? And
We'll reach out. I'm not exactly certain, but we will reach out to the vendor to see if we can even get a place in line. Following the lockdown, the equipment procurement nationwide has truly just gone wacky. I can't explain it any other way than that. We were speaking to,
I like
forget
that
who was
word,
speaking.
wacky.
It certainly has. The city of Baltimore has gone into the used market, and they're purchasing used aerial apparatus, and they're purchasing used vehicles because they can't get new vehicles in a timely fashion. So it is, it's something that I can't explain. But anyways, the ambulance. The ambulance needs to be funded. Our ambulances on average do, if not close to 4,000 rides a year, over 4,000 rides a year. They're hard miles. So this ambulance absolutely needs to be funded. The chief's vehicle,
So sorry, we purchased a new ambulance, so what's our cycle, what year? How many?
Right now, we have 3 frontline ambulances and 3 backup ambulances. The frontline ambulance, Jerry, you want to speak to the frontline ambulance?
We purchased, spring of this year, we purchased a new ambulance, a new Braun, based on availability. Similar issues that are going around with the engines, just having that availability. Previous year, we purchased from a different manufacturer, another frontline ambulance. So we've replaced our Medic 1 unit and our Medic 2 in the past, or correct, our Medic 1 and our Medic 4 in the past 2 years. Our Medic 2, I believe, is a 2014. That would be the next one to be replaced. In the meantime, we are also using our spare ambulances right now as that peak ambulance. So that's running just as much as our frontline. And we're rotating through maintenance to that budget just as much.
Thank you.
We can move through the capital plan.
Okay. Chief's vehicles, that's the $65,000. That would replace one of the cars, one of the Tahoes. That currently is a 2013. We would cycle that through. And then for facilities upgrades, that has we have several projects that would be considered facilities upgrades. We have some rooftop units, a rooftop heating unit at Station 3. We have concrete apron work in front of Central Station. That's becoming an actual hazard. We have some computer upgrades that we're requesting. We'll talk about that in a second. And then we have Station 6. Station 6 is South Troy Canal Avenue. We just put a lot of money into that with new windows and the new floor. The last thing that needs to be done is the actual masonry work on top of that. And then new carpet and in the Central Station up in the chief's office. That carpet up there is, original to the building. It can no longer be vacuumed. There are so many runs in that it just can't be. It needs to be replaced. As simple as that. Those are the projects that come out of the $175,000. Towards the new computer, and towards the upgrades of technology. We just rolled out a plan. We just rolled out a program to our guys to go around and to do pre-plans. It's a new program in which it gives a digital representation of the buildings and the computers and the iPads and everything that we're asking our guys to complete this work are just not compatible with the new technology that we're asking them to do. So in the capital plan, we're also asking for some for new computer work and new items like that.
Sure.
Council President.
Andy, is that in the 175 included? Okay. Andy, are any of these funded? Yeah. Chief, and just last thing, how's Lansingburg now in terms of,
It's terrible.
I know.
It's terrible. So when I became fire chief, I honestly thought that it was going to be very easy to replace the station. It's been in the capital plan. As you take a look in 2025, there's $7.5 million, you know, $8.5 million. There is money has been set aside for this. It just seems as though the procurement of the property and moving through those steps seem to be a hurdle that we have difficulty getting. 2 years ago, we brought an architect in, when I thought that we were going to have no problem purchasing the property that we're speaking of now. We brought an architect in, the architect sat down with us and, you know, designed a station to fit on that piece of property. We thought that piece of property was going to be ideal. It was big enough to fit a station on. There was a piece of property across the street that we could have for parking. And we just have not been able to, advance that ball down the field.
Sure.
Councilman Gully.
Just because I'm thinking here, what do we do now? But I thought that since Redbird couldn't make up their mind what they wanted to do with Capital's football field, that maybe that piece of property, they might entertain to put the station there on 7th Avenue, to give you access to the road going up the hill. And I mean, there's a thought, they didn't know what to do with it.
Correct. So that idea has already been moved forward. So where that lands, I have absolutely no idea.
I want to thank the person who's thinking alike.
He's sitting at one of these, he's sitting at this table over here.
Yep. Let's move to the revenue agency.
So it's kept the same at $2.45 million. From the 2023 estimate. You look at last year, from 2022, it was just under 2.5. I will note that peak ambulance certainly has increased revenue along with got the electric Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement rates have increased, things of that nature. The component of the 2.5 million in 2022 was that we ran the 12-hour peak ambulance. In addition to that, for about 6 months, we also ran out of peak ambulance, a 24-hour ambulance while the improvements were made to Canal Avenue Firehouse. So based off of all those factors, it was still, I mentioned the second quarter report review, still working through the Medicaid bank account transition, which that's how long it takes with them. So I just felt it best to keep it the same. That 2023 will be the year that you have the clean amount in for just a 12-hour peak, the impact there as well. So that was the basis of all that decision.
And Chair,
Council President.
do you have a number for 2023 or skewed and would that be worthwhile?
It's skewed and we are in the middle of updating the general
Okay.
ledger, so I
Okay.
can send that once. It'll be in the quarterly.
And on the hazmat, Andy, I know we talked about going into this year, last year, that we had lost some reimbursement or somebody started doing their own hazmat. I don't know. I would have to look back at my notes. Yeah, I know, but it's 5,000 for 2023 and I don't know.
But I budgeted 25,000 for 2024 based off of the amount in 2020.
So where are we now? Okay.
I'd like to check that and I can send it along.
Okay.
Chair.
Councilman Gully.
Chiefs. When our hazmat goes out to other parts of the county and other parts, do we get some sort of compensation for that?
Yes, we do. We can charge the insurance companies. We generally just recoup the items that we use during the incident. All of the equipment that we use, they refund us in equipment and like equipment. And then that way, it makes it cleaner for us. It makes it easier for us. Because it's to go through the insurance company, it's a little bit of a hassle.
Does that amount we get, the compensation, does that cover us for our, our payroll that the time we spend on payroll, benefits, the back end?
I could take a look at that.
You can see if it's a fair wash, you know what I
Right.
mean?
I could take a look at that. I would say no.
Obviously, you see those figures.
Yeah, I can check it. I'll check and just,
Yeah,
just,
just some outputs, that's all.
Yep.
Just so we know where we stand.
absolutely.
And Chair.
Council President.
Yep, so yeah, looking back, Andy, we've been doing 5K for the hazmat, so that's why I was surprised with the 25.
Any other questions?
Chair, an update on the report and just how many vacancies now and what's the potential projection for next year?
So right now we have 4 vacancies. Our overall staffing went from 120 to 124. We were not able to fill to 124. So we have 4 vacancies right now. It can be easily anticipated that by February or March, we will have 4 more vacancies. We've had discussion with the command staff to hire again in February to make certain that we hit the right times so that we can hire in February, have them out of the academy by May, to EMT school, right into paramedic school, and again, make it one long progression. After we bring those 8 on, it would be anybody's guess. In November 2024, the 17 members that are in the academy now will be out and will be full members of the department. And we will, plus we will have 8 members in the academy or in paramedic school. So we're going to continue with, we'll continue with that cycle. And I would anticipate that following these 8 members, that our department is a junior department. Our department has a lot of members that I don't even know who would even be able to retire in 2025 at that point. There would be only a few.
Chief Eric Wisher raised his hand.
He would be one. He certainly would be one. As far as, and I'm sorry, so does that answer your question as far as the hiring and the staffing goes? So we do have a plan in place. We do have a plan in place to hire in February. We still have a list of candidates that we can select from as well.
Chair.
Council President? No, not Council President.
I'm not the kind of person. Okay, I remember. I'm wondering, Chief, can you speak to the progress that's been done on the, I know the study we finally found a consultant for that. Can we get an update on that? Do you have any-
I believe that was also right.
Yes. it was
Okay,
on my
so,
list.
so there is gonna be a change in mayor. There's going to be a change in the fire chief. The company that we selected was Manitow. Manitow is the proprietor of Manitow is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Charles Jennings. He had a few hours that he was going to be close to the area. He reached out and asked if we could just glad hand, he wanted to meet the mayor, he wanted to meet with me and the command staff. We turned over some preliminary information to him. He is looking to have a formal kickoff November, the middle of November before Thanksgiving. So it'll be after the election. The incoming mayor will be known. By that time, it's hopeful that the fire chief will be seated. And it'll be a formal kickoff. The formal kickoff, from what I understand, is labor, management, and administration. That's my understanding. He comes in, sits down with all the parties, and it's a lay of the land. And yes, the Chief Salucci was just reminding me that he feels as though that this is going to take all of 6 months to go through all of the data, to compile everything. So sometime in June of 24.
Any other questions, council members?
Sure.
Council President.
So, now you're in a unique position where you're, heading off to, a new chapter, chief, and, 2024 is on the brink and a budget. What do you think about 2024, similar to how we had Chief, DeWalt?
Well, I will say this, the fire department is set up much like the police department, much like any paramilitary organization. It's gonna operate fine. Like I stated, that we're in a little bit of a flux, in my opinion. We have 17 members in a fire academy. As soon as a great majority of them come out of the fire academy, they're gonna go right to paramedic school. We are gonna, hopefully the efforts can be redoubled to get a station built up in the Lansingburg section. Much like, the station is antiquated. The station needs to be replaced. I feel very strongly that this comprehensive study is going to come through, and it is going to state obvious things, that we are a busy department, that we have a tremendous amount of infrastructure that the fire department is responsible for, and that our guys just make a Herculean effort each and every single day. To echo some of the things that Chief DeWolf stated, we get calls every single day into the chief's office, singing our guys' praises, just telling us what an absolute wonderful job that they do. And I just couldn't be more proud of the work effort that they do. They truly on paper, when you take a look at what they do on paper, it truly amazes me. And so it's been an honor for me to lead this department. It's been a privilege to work with these guys. These guys are I honestly believe that they're the hardest working, smartest people I've ever met. And I just wish them all the best of luck. Thank you very much for funding them. Thank you very much for all the support that you handed out to these guys, and please keep that support. Please keep that support going. That's it.
Chair,
Council President.
I did have one last question. I apologize, Chief. We decided to do the training in-house. How has that been going? And is there anything in the budget that we need to do to reflect that?
It's been going spectacular, in my opinion. Our guys have really stepped up. They're doing it according to state guidelines, but they're also learning it the way we do it in Troy. Like that, so they just learn the little things that you can't learn in an outside academy, they're learning. And to echo what Chief McManus about the guys in general, the guys that are out there at the academy have really done a phenomenal job. They really put a lot of effort into it. You see it every day. The recruits are really enjoying it, and a lot of them, I shouldn't say, several of them have experience in the volunteer sector, so they have a little bit. But there's a bunch that have no firefighting experience, and just in the few 7-8 weeks that they've been there, it's really encouraging to see how they've come along. So I again echo sing praises of the guys that are out there really receiving the follow through. And we hope, we believe that aside from being fiscally better for us, we're hoping to do it again in February. We may adjust some things around to account for weather at that time. The academy, county, we may juggle some things around, but we like to do that again. It's really nice.
Awesome. And when do they finish, Chief?
December 8th.
And then they go to.
They will finish the academy December 8th. Out of the 17, 2 are paramedics, 8 are EMTs, 7 have no training. So they finish December 8th. December 11th, which is a Monday, those 7 guys will be at our upstairs in our training EMT class. The other 10 will most likely be dispersed throughout as additional members to get some additional training prior to them going to paramedic school.
And Andy, we're on budget and taken and. Yeah,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
I just have one more question. In terms of that, communication updates, do those updates also include, I remember the phones were on copper lines, are those still on copper lines?
Yes, and so we are working through that. We're working with different organizations, different vendors to figure out a way to get the signal from the dispatch center up to each one of the stations.
So is that included in the?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Great, thank you.
And Chair, do we still do Morse code? That
We could do Morse code. We still have, down in the basement, we still have a couple of the old tickers in there.
I would love to see them. Seriously, that is so cool. Oh my gosh, that's cool.
Well, I think on that note, we will say thank you to all of you chiefs for your information tonight, and for everything you do every day. And on a personal note, Chief McMahon, wishing you all the best. It's been a real privilege to work with you.
No more than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are in great hands, though, to be totally honest with you. The place is meant to operate just like this, in which, when one leaves, someone else fills in.
Thank you.
Still
Thank you all.
FPV.
This is our last budget hearing with them. Yeah, we met.
Oh, no.
Thank you very much.
At this point in the hearing, we would welcome any comments from the public. We're waiting for a microphone. Please just state your name and your place of residence.
Eric Wisher, I'm the president of Troy Uniform Firefighters Association, Local 86. We live in the city at 30 Fairfield Road. Let's start with the peak ambulance, right? I hope that makes it through finance
That particular peak ambulance, Medic 3, just spent 3 hours and 14 minutes at Samaritan Hospital waiting to turn over a patient. So if we put it on duty for 12 hours, we just ate over a quarter of it up on one call. Right? We need that, but we need more too, you know what I mean? And that's at Samaritan, that's not even talking Albany. It's October, it's not January, February, when things get ramped up, when people are sick. It's like that every day almost. Last month, when our shift worked at Tuesday, we did 60 calls in the city. We normally do about 37. 51 of those calls were by 8 o'clock at night. We had 20 mutual aid ambulances in the city throughout that 12-hour period. 20 mutual aid ambulances. County came 7 times. RPI did 4 calls, and we're 3 in 12 hours. With an extra ambulance. It's busy, and it's been like that day after day for the last 3 months. There's a period where it happens, they had a fire up at High Point the other day. All hell broke loose after that. There was 11 calls in 19 minutes. Right, it's not going away. So hopefully we get to keep that peak ambulance. Obviously, we know there's a study. There needs to be more, but when we're tying it up for 3 hours, it's, you know, the hospital has its own issues, right? The other night we waited 2 hours. I walked all around the ER, half the beds are empty. You can't get the staff. Tonight, they have 31 people waiting to get beds upstairs and 60 people in the waiting room. There's no rhyme or reason. It can be any of those situations. To the firehouse, anybody that sold property, it's full disclosure, right? So this guy doesn't want to know what's under there because he can sell to somebody else as is. Right? That's my hunch. If he knows there's something there and the city doesn't buy it, now it's lost a lot of value. He's paved a lot on the other side of the street, so obviously he has no intention of selling it to the city. I won't state it publicly, but there's another piece of property coming up for sale. I will mention off the record to people. It's not far away, but we definitely need a firehouse. We're just throwing good money after bad up there. The walls are rotted out on the bottom, you know, but we live there. It's a mess. To the pumpers, I think if we go to Vandermolen, just my opinion, and say, hey, if we take 2 more pumpers, can we get them at the same price as when we bought last year? He may do it to get the business, right? I don't know, just my opinion. But back to the firehouses in general, right? Jim questioned the doors, the motors, right? We're not adding anybody, everything's getting busier, the doors go up and down more, the rigs run more, the miles pile up on the ambulances, because we go to Albany more, because we only have 1 hospital. The stuff is wearing out quicker. And we have to address it, right? But we're still using a 2003 pumper as a frontline piece. The other day, we had no ambulance for 12 hours because everything was broke. Medic 1 was off duty for almost 12 hours. But
Eric,
Are you comfortable answering the question?
yeah, absolutely.
thank you. The ambulance, what about the new one that, did we purchase a new one and have?
The one that, you know, spares were being used, we had to have one at the academy because they were burning, so we have to have an ambulance on site. In case something goes bad, the other 2 spares were broke. One's being used as Medic 3. Medic 1 had a charging problem. They had difficulty in starting, so they had to take it offline. We had nothing to put on in line. The ambulance we used to go out on the raids with the cops is on 1997. And that goes out probably a couple times a week. Sometimes it goes to Colony, it goes, you know, miles away. Doesn't stay in the city. Sure.
Eric, our equipment. Are there a lot of like specific details we need on a vehicle in Troy, or is it just like a? You know,
It's like any vehicle. You're either buying a Kia or a Lincoln, you know what I mean? We try to buy the Medic 1 they bought is a PL Custom, has a lifetime structure warranty, a lifetime electrical warranty. Most of the other brands don't have that, right?
what brand is that?
PL Custom.
We bought the Braun because we could get it quick. It's a pretty good ambulance, what we bought, but it doesn't have all those warranties with it. It's a little cheaper. You know, that was out of the assembly line and it was set up different than what we use. But it works. It was set up for a fire department.
What ages do we have on our ambulances right now?
Ambulances, Medic 4 was earlier this year. Medic 1 was the year before.
What year vehicle are they? 2022, 2023?
So they're probably 22s and 21s.
So what are the older ones we have?
The other one's a Medic 2, I believe, is like a 14. And then the spares get even older than it. Some of them have 150,000 miles on them. You know, the one we use the cop, we use sparingly, but that's a 97.
Great, thank you.
I will say, unless you got more questions before I move on to something else. The dispatch with the county, that's a mandated service by the state. Why do we pay it? I don't know. Schenectady, they don't pay for, the city of Schenectady doesn't pay for dispatch for the county. They get $1.1 million to do hazmat from the county. We don't get anything, maybe some equipment once in a while. They guarantee them 8 guys off the bat and then 20 guys total when there's an incident anywhere in the county.
What really kind of disturbs me, the amount of time that our men are tied up at the hospital. I know in the past we've talked about this and you mentioned that there's ways to protect our time here, or at least push at the hospital boards to compensate the city for the time.
So there's
Could you help us understand that?
So there's things called, Councilwoman Men brought up before, there are things called the M. Powell laws. If we've given a radio report and we're within 250 feet of the hospital property, you're not obligated to stay. That's a courtesy. Now, Gilderland charges when they stay. It changed the whole outlook. From what I know, they've only charged a few times. Their wait times went way down.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not right. It's like a fire underneath their feet. Oh, no offense, Joe.
We'll put it out.
How could I? You'll-
I think Clifton Park does it too, but I'd have to check.
We have
it.
your inbox, your pencil in your pen. Open in your inbox today.
Eric, would you mind continuing, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I spent a lot of time in the hospital, I'll tell you. They're overwhelmed. The emergency room with all these beds looks like a football stadium. There's gotta be 10,000 people in that place. Everywhere you went, people were breathing on you, laying on the side, and laying up all. Some of them even laid down on the floor. It's just a big house. We don't have the proper service. Where else you?
Sometimes you wait an hour at all we meant to bring somebody to the waiting room. By the time they figure it all out, where the beds are, the chairs are.
It's just these hospitals have some sort of liaison that would take over that patient, get there. Delegate towards your job without serving the communities. That way you push back. And microphone first. I just don't. It just befuddles me that we're not fighting for something. A lot of money runs out the door. When you guys are just sitting there, you're not taking care of the Trojans, you're sitting there with the person waiting to get service, and they should have some sort of service for us.
You know, listen, I'll give the chief credit. I told him this afternoon, said, hey, the guys texted me, they've been waiting over 2 hours. I actually stopped to get something, so again, they brought in a 5th ambulance with guys on overtime to try and cover the onslaught of the fire engines and ladder trucks that we lose by sitting at the hospital. You know,
It's
it's
not
a,
getting any easier. is it?
no, it's a Band-Aid fix and
Well, that's something we should look at. Not much time left, and we've been hoping that council pursues it further. We'll see what happens. Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Appreciate the information.
yeah, no problem. Any other questions? You look like you want to say something, so
No, I
No?
just,
Okay.
waiting for you to continue.
I'm done with that unless anybody has any other
I
questions.
don't think.
I mean, I could go way out,
Are you done?
but I'm just wasting my time, I think.
Yeah, well,
They're small problems and we have major problems.
I'm done. I just want to say that every time I go to one of these events, community events, it's always you guys behind the grill. Are you guys the only ones that can cook or what? Yeah.
The cops have picked that up. They have a line item, the chief said, right? $3,000 for picnics. UFA covers that, so, and we don't have a problem doing that. We agree. We like being involved in the community and, we even thought outside the box last month and we brought the grill up to the academy, cooked lunch for the guys to bring them in to the fold. They thought that was the greatest thing. We're gonna go up again this Friday and do
No,
it.
so
So,
we're very well received in the community all the time, and you guys are always there, and I thank you for that.
well,
And
thanks.
that really impacts our communities. When they get to know you, first they get to see you, then they get to know you, and once they have conversations with you, they're more open and comfortable with you there, so.
Yep.
I appreciate everything that fire department, police department is doing to get into our communities.
Well,
We
thank
need
you.
more of that.
Thank you. All set? If nobody has any questions?
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, Eric.
No, it's okay. Let's do a favor, give a hard copy of it.
We don't have a complete hard copy of our contract. We have a contract from 2012 to 2016. We have a arbitrated ruling from 17 and 18. We have an MOA from 19 to 22, and now we have another MOA from 23 to 24. The, other than this last one, of the executive board, we spent many weeks. We took the 2016, 2012 contract, we fixed any punctuation, any spelling before we even started, did all that. We merged the arbitrated ruling into it, then we moved the next MOA into it. We sent that to our lawyer, his people went through it, and they sent that to Rick. And they don't want to give us a copy, so we grieved it, and we're in arbitration to get a copy of the contract.
Thanks for that information.
Yep, you're welcome. Good.
I think we're good, Eric, this time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to make any comments during the public forum? I guess not. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilman Gully and a second. Councilmember Mann, all in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.